Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to share with you an idea for the funds that are currently stored in the DAO. I think it's really important we leverage that value to try and future-proof our game or create greater incentives to hold SPS and to just build greater strength into the future tokenization of this game. I think all of those things can be handled, improved, bettered by the idea I'm going to propose to you today. So I hope you'll stick around and hear me out. My name is Dwayne Cunningham. I go by Infidel1258. You can call me 12. Let's get into it. So if you don't know, Splinterlands is a blockchain-based video game which has a decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO, that with our SPS governance, we have a certain vote controlling the account. We can not only direct the vision in the future of what Splinterlands is and where it's going to go, maybe what packs we're going to create, promos we're going to sell, etc., but also bigger things along into the future. And in the right now, SPS DAO has a treasury report. It comes out regularly, and you can go sps.dao.report and find it on Hive or Splinter Talk. And as of 24 hours ago, there was $3.69 million in that DAO. And so it's important to understand that this is part of why Splinterlands and the tokenization of the game are exciting across a long time horizon. This DAO represents valuation that we collectively control. Theoretically, we could put it to work in different ways. Now, if there are logical paths forward with how to spend this money and creative ways that will either generate more or better our community, you would think we would strike at those. And yet it feels very rare where I've heard any consensus around the application of this valuation. So we've got this value sitting there and it's not doing anything. Why? This is part of why Splinterlands is exciting. This is part of why SPS should be a long-term hold, because each token of SPS is a certain amount of voice with respect to this huge wallet of money. And so you would think that if we can grow this wallet of money, we would incentivize greater investment into SPS, and therefore we should desire to improve this. If it's simple. If we can at least agree that we should be looking at forward-facing long-term growth strategies for this fund and recognizing that that's in the best interest of every SPS token holder, I think that's forward progress. I don't believe we're there yet. So I hope that's a piece that we can all grab onto. And if so, we can move forward into, well, what could we do with some of this? First of all, I want to point out that $3.7 million is not necessarily all in Hive assets. There is a huge distinction between 3.7 million cash and 3.7 million in miscellaneous assets, some of which are easy and liquid and some of which are not. I just want to point us to the fact that this is a huge wallet of money, and there is some potential plans that we could put forward that would leverage that in a really logical way. And here's one. When we come over to Splinter cards, we can see that there are 658,000 Rebellion packs, and there is 204,000 Riftwatcher packs stored in the DAO, owned collectively by us who have SPS, by those who control that account with our SPS vote. And so, what could we do with that? Well, I've heard different people say different things, like maybe we should burn them, maybe we should give them away as rewards. One thing I haven't heard is the idea that creating accounts with these tokens would solve two major problems. The first is we know that there's lack of liquidity. Match liquidity can be cumbersome, problematic, annoying. At best, it can be annoying. At worst, it can be a real detriment to the player experience. If it takes many minutes to find a match, that is going to push away certain players. Still, match liquidity continues to be a problem. That's why we have the game creating ghost card bots. Wouldn't it be better if there was even more match liquidity at every level, maybe particularly in modern? But yes, why not in wild? Here's the thing. With 650,000 Rebellion packs and 200,000 Riftwatcher packs, we could make a crazy, I'm thinking at minimum, I think that's 80 or 100 really high level accounts. And those accounts would be DAO assets. Those accounts would be cards that we own. So these would be 100 new accounts that are max level maybe, or maybe you'd go some at silver, some at bronze, some at diamond, and then you'd get 200, 300, 400 accounts, I would think, because of how many less assets you need at those lower levels. Why would this be good? It's not just match liquidity. It's also an economic response and an opportunity. Recognize that when the account would win, it would earn SPS. We could actually use SPS from the DAO, assign it to those accounts, and now we have 100 or 200 different revenue generating assets. Why would we want to do that? If you don't like the idea of, for instance, staking that SPS and DEC that's in the DAO into liquidity pools and taking reward from the pool, if you've raised concerns about that, you might think my idea is bad because you don't want to take SPS rewards from players playing the game and assign it to the DAO. It would water down or diminish the returns potential for real players, and therefore, while the DAO would benefit, the player base would not. That's not the idea. The idea here is when they play the game, when the account comes in, it has a win at diamond level or gold level or whatever level, the SPS immediately gets burned. And here's a caveat. I know right now, whenever you win, the SPS goes into auto stake, and you need 4 weeks to unstake it. So there's a two-part idea I'm making here. The first is that all SPS actually should be auto staked unless you forfeit the right to have SPS, and then you can immediately, in that scenario, you can immediately burn it for DEC. Right now at 750 Splintoshis, and so that would be good for the game. This is like a subsection point that if you could immediately burn SPS to get DEC, people would do it, even though they're getting a reduced return on that. And if they did it, that would ultimately help the game because we would get more and more SPS burnt. Yes, there'd be new creation of DEC, but theoretically that would be spent and chased after, it'd be used to chase after assets within the game, which might bolster your card valuations. I think this sort of freedom makes a lot of sense to offer people. And I think it would be better for the game in the sense because SPS would be burnt. And that's going to be long-term good for the SPS price valuations, which should be long-term good for attracting new players because prices will spike as SPS becomes more scarce. And if prices of SPS spike, then playing the game becomes more rewarding. But if we say 5.5 SPS goes to your auto stake or it gets burnt and you get essentially 4 SPS worth of DEC that you can immediately spend, it starts to, I think that's like the first piece of this picture, making it not just auto stake, but burnable immediately. And with that in mind, you could then change how the DAO would benefit. We would not be collecting SPS. In some sense, we would be taking SPS from the reward pool, but it wouldn't be just accumulating in the DAO for one future day when we have a huge bag of SPS and we need to sell on the heads of the player base. Instead, it would be immediately deleted and turned into DEC. And what good would that be, Dwayne? Well, now we have a huge bag of DEC in the DAO because we would be earning SPS, burning for DEC. We'd be diminishing the SPS supply, which long-term should be good for the game. And so a lot of SPS is being earned through automation, creating match liquidity, creating an income source for the DAO, which we long-term are going to need, and also helping the tokenomics of the game because the SPS number is being lowered, creating greater scarcity, driving future demand for not just the token, but for the game and the cards, because now you need those cards to chase after those scarce SPS. And finally, through automation, you could actually utilize the DEC on a planned purchase of cards. All of this can be automated. It doesn't need to be scholared, although that could be an interesting option too. Using automation and data that we already have access to, we could automate the sale of the burn of the SPS. We could automate the purchase of cards that would move the needle with respect to improving those automated accounts. OBSBOT card research is I heard, shout out to Silence. I saw for the first time ever, this information came to me from him watching one of his recent videos. So check out his channel, The Silence, I think. This OBSBOT card research, which is backed up by, millions and millions of battles, gives an amazing way to measure which card would move the needle best for any given account. The automated system could take the DEC that's accruing and put it towards the market to buy the best value score to improve each of those decks. And now we're no longer just holding within the DAO, Rebellion, and Riftwatcher accounts, but we would be slowly accruing soulbound reward cards, which would be free and earned through time and attention. And then simultaneously DEC would be used to walk into the marketplace and acquire whatever assets move the needle meaningfully. So maybe it's Kalia Frendel, or maybe it's Thaddeus Brood, or maybe it's Sarsa or Obsidian. You can see how this isn't necessarily dependent upon human attention, but can be driven by automation. And it would ultimately be an incentive to each SPS token holder in that, one, the DAO would be stronger and stronger because it has a revenue stream. Two, the SPS tokenomics would be better and better because we would be deleting, removing, erasing SPS tokens. The DAO would be diversifying and creating an ongoing sustainable revenue system because it's now got several accounts, each of which was getting stronger across time due to soulbound reward cards and DEC purchases. And finally, for that DEC, those DEC purchases would be creating value for you and me. If you have cards in the marketplace, that DEC valuation that was in the DAO created by burnt SPS would come toward the market and buy your and my cards. And so it's long-term beneficial with respect to SPS price point and the tokenomics around it. It's long-term beneficial in terms of creating market desire for the cards that we already have on the marketplace. It's long-term beneficial in that it would create a revenue source that's sustainable in nature for the DAO, which we should want to incentivize, seeing as we have the keys to that wallet. And so for all those reasons and probably more, I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had around putting those packs to work. And of course, I do think it would be great if the SPS earn could be immediately burned. But if that was a separate conversation that isn't necessarily tied to the first piece where we're just utilizing the assets, automated accounts to generate revenue, which is sustainable in nature, that feels like idea one. And part two is like, what if we could just go ahead and burn SPS for DC right away? There would be a discount, there'd be a loss, but lots of people would do it. That would lower SPS as well. And it would create more liquidity for certain people to come to the marketplace. I think that could be interesting too. I think the two ideas go together well, but individually they could be packaged if need be. I think this is pretty exciting stuff. I do think we have to get creative with respect to how we use this value. I think currently we haven't really. This is millions of dollars, and it can and should be leveraged in a way that multiplies that valuation, because every time we multiply it, we will incentivize greater ownership and greater stake and greater chase after SPS, because SPS is the token that unlocks this wallet. The more SPS you have, the more vote you have with respect to the DAO, and therefore the more control you have over this wallet. Regardless of how the DAO gets used, if that number goes up, we as SPS holders are better off than if it stays low. And right now, there's no legitimate conversation happening around how we leverage that into a bigger way. And I'm saying, I really think putting those packs to work would be one way, which doesn't necessarily rock the boat in terms of we wouldn't be selling SPS or DEC onto our economy. We wouldn't be getting rid of Ethereum or any other token that's foot into the broader crypto space in an investment sense. And finally, those packs are just sitting there unused. Why don't we let them generate revenue in a way that would benefit our broader community? By earning SPS, burning it immediately, creating DEC, which is buy pressure for our cards. Makes sense to me. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Have an amazing day. God bless.